Hey, it's She. Let's get to 200 weaponsmithing. The focus of this video will be on farming materials, refining them yourself, and crafting with them. That said, everything here that I'm going to tell you to farm can be bought on the auction house. There are some requirements moving forward. You will need a tier 5 smelter and a tier 5 forge somewhere on your server. Given that the fresh start servers already have these, you shouldn't have any issues. Your smelting skill will need to be 150 or higher. As you progress through this guide, getting to 150 to make orichalcum ingots should happen naturally. If not, my favorite little hack for leveling refining is just to grind out the highest level of material you can, use some solvent to downgrade that material that you just made, and then grind it out again. This saves on farming time and can boost you very fast. Normally, I would tell you putting points into focus to get extra ingots back when you salvage the weapons we're going to make would be a thing to do. However, this has been proven to not work, as the text on the skill indicates. No need to change stats here. Finally, if you choose to gather your materials, you'll definitely want increased yield on your axe, pickaxe, and skinning knife. You'll also want to use a proficiency booster, and if you can play the music, or run into a bard, get the Fortune's Favor buff. Like most things here, these are nice to have, but not required. It just makes the grind a little faster. So, getting into it, we have a very simple strategy. Greatswords. We will make thousands of greatswords. Why greatswords, you may ask? Well, for the material involved, they give the largest per ingot return, unlike armoring though, which you can find a video tutorial for here. In the last tier crafting, 150 to 200, you'll be doing all the one-time crafts. And as a note, we will not do any one-time craft bonuses until we reach 150 weaponsmithing, where it'll be worth pursuing. At this range, we'll maintain the highest experience per ingot spent during the leveling process. Putting this another way, we're spending our various ingots as a currency to get a return on experience. So, we want the most for our currency. We're basically buying experience with ingots, so we want it to be worth it. Here's a general overview of what we're going to be crafting and what it'll cost in terms of materials. I'm not going to go over each detail. You can pause here if you want to go through it. And here's our overall cost. Now, this is the raw cost. We're going to spend far less on the actual ore that we use. That said, we'll still need to gather a large amount of rawhide and green wood. We will spend far less than advertised on the ore because as we craft, we will salvage everything we make. With this in mind, for roughly every 4 swords that we craft, we get 1 for free. This is not insignificant. We're going to do this in segments to both break it up, give measurable progress, and ensure that we're not over-farming or over-buying. So we'll be gathering iron ore, star metal ore, silver ore, gold ore, platinum ore, orichalcum ore, rawhide, green wood, and obsidian flux. The following runs will be repeated many times. Get comfortable with them. Feel free to grab more than you need while here because you will inevitably need more of them for the next runs. And I should note I have videos for all of these runs, and we'll link them in the description and as the pinned comment. For the iron, you can get it here in Windsward at Inkwell Cave. For star metal, my favorite spot is here in Morningdale at Ram's Respite. You can also stock up on silver, iron, and platinum while here. This is very useful for when we make orichalcum later. If you're a lower level, I have another route for star metal that starts in Brightwood here that also has a healthy amount of gold, which again we will need later. Finally, for orichalcum, use the orichalcum ingot route here that has everything we need to make ingots. Keep in mind that there are 2 methods to make orichalcum ingots. One uses iron, steel, and star metal as its precursors, and the other uses silver, gold, and platinum as its precursors. I personally prefer the platinum path as it does not require charcoal for each step, and this route reflects that. Both the Morningdale and Brightwood routes can be effective for producing orichalcum ingots later on. And finally, while the Brightwood orichalcum route has chests built into it, some people enjoy doing dedicated chest runs. For you guys, I suggest this chest run here as it's a full loop with great density. Finally, for the rawhide, you can get it here passively at Inkwell, or here at First Light. There are other, more efficient runs, but they are often overrun, and our demand for rawhide for this is not very high. Alright, let's get into it. So, to start, we're going to craft about 100 iron greatswords to go from 0 to 50. There are so few required here, we're going to do them all in one gathering run. Further runs will be broken into segments to make them more manageable. This will actually get us a bit over 50, but this is going to be one of the shortest gathering runs that we do for the entire process, so let's make good use of that time. Any extra material we gather will simply roll into the next tier. So, we'll need about 900 rawhide, 3,000 green wood, and 4,500 iron ore. Gather the material using the routes listed, or the auction house, your choice. Head to the refining station for each one and refine them. That is the smelter for iron ingots, the tannery for quartz leather, and the wood shop for the timber. Now we're going to head to the forge and make 100 iron greatswords, then salvage them all. We're going to save the salvage return for this first run for use in the next run. Now, you may get some research notes while you do this. If you do, you're going to use them like this. It's important to note that each tier has a different level of research notes that you will get, and whenever you get them, you need to research them. Do not convert them into material, that's a waste at this point. So you've made it from level 50, now we're going to get to level 100 with steel greatswords. We need about 200 of these, so I recommend we do this 50 greatswords at a time until we reach level 100. This will let us do research in between runs and break them up a little bit. Per run, we need to gather in a specific way. We only need, for instance, 400 rawhide, but we're going to gather 600 or more. We do this because when we salvage, we'll get 25 to 50% of the ore cost back. So we want the extra timber and coarse leather to account for this salvage. Our official goal per 50 greatswords is 3,900 iron ore, 2,800 green wood, of which we're going to turn 700 into charcoal and 350 into timber, 400 obsidian flux, and 600 rawhide. Now, 3,900 iron sounds like a lot, and it is, but it's only a few hours of farming. User routes listed in the description, or a few trips to the auction house if you're so inclined, and a lot of gold later, your call here. Now for the refining process, you'll want to craft your charcoal first. Aim for about 700 charcoal. You'll want to turn the rest of your greenwood into timber, and should have enough left for about 350. This is why we overgather a little bit too. Next, craft your greatswords, making sure to use timber and coarse leather as your options. Salvage the greatswords, make more greatswords from the salvage, and then do your research. We will do this until we reach level 100. Congratulations on reaching level 100. Now we're going to focus on Star Metal Greatswords 30 at a time. For this, we will need to acquire another 3,700 iron ore, 1,900 Star Metal ore, 700 obsidian flux, 3,500 greenwood, with which we'll make about 1,300 charcoal and 210 timber, and 400 rawhide. Now let's refine. To start, make your 1,300 charcoal first, then make your Star Metal ingots, coarse leather, and timber. Next, make the Star Metal greatswords, break them down, make more with what's left, and do your research. Repeat this until you get to level 150. You may have noticed that we're crafting fewer at a time as we go up in level, but the requirements to craft go up. This is how crafting in the world works. It's normal, I promise. So we're lowering the number of greatswords that we craft to keep the gathering as manageable as possible for most people. And with that in mind, it should come as no surprise that we'll be crafting Orichalcum greatswords 25 at a time. Now we've reached the end game. Now, we mentioned in the beginning that Orichalcum ingots have two paths that let you craft them. You have a platinum route and a Star Metal route. Depending on your server's farming routes, will depend on which farm is better for you. I tend to alternate between both for a break in the monotony. No matter which route you choose, you're going to need 280 Orichalcum ingots for each craft. For the Star Metal route, each set of 25 Orichalcum greatswords will require you to gather about 2,500 Star Metal ore, 4,500 iron ore, 1,200 obsidian flux, 4,500 greenwood, of which you'll need to turn about 2,100 into charcoal, and 500 rawhide, and finally 2,300 Orichalcum ore. For the platinum route, the numbers change a bit. We'll gather about 6,500 silver ore, 3,200 gold ore, 2,500 platinum ore, 500 obsidian flux, about 3,000 greenwood, split between about 600 charcoal and 150 timber, 500 rawhide, and finally 2,300 Orichalcum ore. This sounds a bit extreme, but almost no one competes for silver and gold, and you'll typically gather far more than you need in a given run. If you're going the platinum route, your competition here and your limiting factor will inevitably be the Orichalcum ore itself. The way this works out is best seen as a trade-off between farming obsidian flux and greenwood for charcoal versus farming more ore. The platinum route takes more ore up front, but less wood and flux. Either way you go, we're going to gather the materials and refine them. But before we start mass crafting greatswords, let's take advantage of the one-time bonuses given the time or cost required to gather the ingots. To do this, we're going to want to craft one Orichalcum longsword, rapier, warhammer, great axe, kite shield, round shield, and tower shield. Salvage each one as you make them, then craft our greatswords with what's left, and salvage them, craft more greatswords with the salvage, and do our research. Then we're going to go back together enough for another 25 greatswords. We'll craft 25 greatswords at a time until we reach level 200. It really is that simple. In a server with gathering, this took me about a week of background effort. If you really focus or have a lot of coin to spend, you can do this much faster. Now, for some things, currently, it makes a lot more sense to gather them. For other things, it makes a lot more sense to buy them. It's really your choice. For instance, greenwood is so cheap in the auction house, you're almost always better off buying it. The same goes for silver ore. Still, I did this with farming, and I recommend you do so. After all, the goal of the game, in my opinion, is to play it. And if you want to get your gathering skills up, such as your mining, I recommend this video here. Please let me know if this helped in any way in the comments. Genuinely, it makes my day when I can see this help somebody. I hope you have a great day.